right, if flourishes are something you've been dying to get into, you want to keep watching. Alright, so flourishes, they can be intimidating, and I really want you to make sure that you're mastering the basics of the script lettering first. Really make sure you have a good understanding of how those work, and then you're comfortable with them before you start adding in too much when it comes to decoration. I think that then you'll feel like everything is a little more natural as you start doing it. But if you're ready to move on, let's go ahead and start. So when creating flourishes, your hands need to be conditioned. You know, you want to be able to commit the shapes and the feels to the muscle memory of your hands, so that everything just kind of flows automatically. So it's really important to just pick a few to work with to start, master them so that you find yourself really effortlessly using them. So when creating your flourishes, you can take the same shape and start and finish it in different ways. Now, I recommend don't worry so much about thick and thin strokes. Just do it normal. Who cares if they're thick or thin? Get used to the feel of the swooshes and the motion that you're creating first. And then later on, you can actually come in and start practicing the thick and thin portions of them. So I've included in the guide the companion workbook practice guides if you're interested, but you don't need it. You can actually just do this on a blank canvas in Procreate if you'd like. So the first thing we're going to do is go through circles and curls. So the important thing is to make sure that you're staying in the same direction. Try not to switch directions when you're creating these. So some simple flourishes may look like circles, like the letter O, where they come in. Whoops, hold on. Let me do a new layer here. Where they come in and around like an O, and then they just kind of cross through it. You can also play with different ways that they cross each other and enter in and exit out of each other. You may come up a little bit higher, like this. You may come down around a little like this. You might have some where you do 2 circles, like this. So the key is to just practice this, and you can create like sheets and sheets of different ones. And I recommend you doing that. I recommend you getting used to just creating little loops and circles for that. So the next one is going to be more like your coils and these curls. And so kind of like I did in the stroke section, they're just more or less, you know, kind of curls that you're just going to, you can keep going if you want, that you're practicing, and then maybe do some upside down as well. And just get used to that. So those are some things that you might see when it comes to creating flourishes in simple ways. And the beauty is that a lot of these can be used to start, say, a capital letter or something like that you might want to bring in. So just get used to feeling how those work. All right, so the next shape that we're going to look at are ovals. So this is much like circles. You're creating a similar motion, but instead of more of an O shape, you're creating more ovally shape with them. So you want to, again, avoid switching directions when you're doing this. Everything should flow one way. If you're going this way, make everything flow that way. If you're going this way, make everything flow that way. So for this one, we're starting down and everything's just flowing. Do you see how it just kind of like flows around? That's how you should be making it too. You should be making that sound when you do it. Everything just flows and circles around. So for this one, it's just more of an upright one. And everything just flowed in one direction. Here's another one. Everything is just flowing in one direction. Again, flowing in one direction. There's another one that's just more simple. And here's another one that just loops into each other like a little pretzel almost. So with these flourishes, you're keeping everything going that way. So sometimes like I see people start words. So maybe, let me write the word. And instead of like making it so that they'll do like that and it looks weird, you know? Or they'll do like that, which can be a little strange. So sometimes it's better if you bring it up and start it over here, or they'll just be like, oh, I'm going to do this, and then they'll curl it around, or they'll go like this. Like that's awkward, right? You're doing 2 different directions. You're starting this way, but then you're switching it up and coming around. So we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that all of our stuff is kind of more flowing in the same direction. So you kind of could come and do something like that. So if you're finding that you're like, I don't know how to make my stuff, and you're going like, you know, all over the place with your stuff, just stop. Come back and practice the drills and get used to how they should be formed in that swooping motion first. Get your hands conditioned to feeling them. All right, let's talk about figure eights for a second. Figure eights are fun. I love making figure eights. This is where you actually are starting to switch directions, but in a way that makes sense. So for this first one is a pretty basic one. All you're doing is starting, then coming around, thick down, and you're just repeating it as it goes. You could continue them like this one or keep on going. You know, I've seen them sometimes where they're just like, you know, and they get smaller and smaller and smaller like that. This is a fun exercise to practice. Here's another one. It almost forms like a letter L in a way. And then again, here's that one again. So you could go real big, real small, and do something like that if you'd like. Here's one where we're going to switch around and come around. And so we're basically combining the figure eight and the circle together. So here's another figure eight one where we just kind of loop it around at the end. And then here's one where we just bring it around like this. So guys, there's so many ways you could do these. I'm just presenting you with just a very small handful of them. The idea is to keep practicing the strokes and getting your hands, muscle memory in your hands committed to feeling some of these. And pick one or two to work with. You know, you could actually end your letter G with one of these if you wanted. I mean, if it worked, you know, you could certainly do that. Okay, so I just showed you that, but let's talk about letters for a minute. I've provided a few here. I could go on and on with this of ways you can provide or put some flourishing into some of your letters. Some different ways to do with the letter Y. You know, instead of looping it around like a regular Y, you could come up and you could bring it around like this. You could come in and bring it around like this. You could do like I showed you, but instead of bringing it down here, we're going to bring it out a little bit more. So there's different shapes to it. This can be applied like this. So as you can see, just one way of adding onto the tail of the letter Y or a G or a J or something like that, you can do a whole bunch of different things to it and adding some interestingness to it. And it doesn't get overwhelming. So another one is with like the M's or the N's. You could actually bring it around like that. The W's, remember I showed you how I like to make my W? It's a flourish more or less, but you could bring it around a little bit more. The C, this is one I've seen done. I don't do it very much because I feel like it looks like an E, but it is one way to do it. You could bring it around. Then we have some of our letters like this. So instead of coming straight down, we just start out here and loop it around like this. So get used to playing with these. Now, one thing I am going to say is when you start putting together your quotes and what have you, let's make sure we're not going overboard with flourishes because it could get overwhelming. So let's say I'm doing my H and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna make an H like this, and I'm gonna go woo with my Y or my O, and then I'm just gonna, I mean, it could get just overwhelming, right? So just pick one or two letters and play with it. You don't have to get too crazy, okay? Take your time, pick one or two flourish styles that you like, and stick with it, okay? All right, so I want to talk about words here and how you can make flourishes cross over to other words. So for instance, like with your story, so like I could always make the tail of the Y cross into the T or something to that extent. And so when you're working with something like this, it's real important to maybe sketch some things out first, because if you sketch, then you can get messy and you can like play like, does this look good here? And like, yeah, no, it doesn't look good there. Okay, here. Play with it for a little while. So with your story, what I have done is I've actually, I knew I wanted them stacked and I knew I wanted the Y to cross the T. So instead of starting with the Y, I started with the word, or with the O-U-R of the word your. Then I wrote out story and then I came in with the Y and crossed it in. So something like this. I came down here So I knew I wanted your, and I knew that my Y probably was going to fit in this section more or less. So that helped me line up my story. And then I wrote the story. And then I was like, okay, now I know I need the Y to come in and through there. So I just came down and I crossed it like that. So I'm not going to go into tons of these examples. This is just the one I wanted you guys to see and how you can flourish things and make them move around. If I really wanted to get crazy, I probably could come in with my, maybe not that high, you know, my Y up here a little bit more and give it some more interestingness to it. That would be something I could do as well. So this is all in the practice guide if you're interested in it, to kind of go over and learn how I formed everything. All right, so that's all for flourishes. That's all I'm going to go over because they are complex. It's an art form. It's something you got to kind of like master in your mind before you can really do it. But I encourage you to try out a few and just warm up with those drills more often so that your hands start becoming more used to it. All right, I'll see you guys in the next video.